Hey everyone, my name is Tegan and welcome back to TandeWrites, where today I'm in my pyjamas and we're going to be wrapping up my reading for June and some kind of mid-year stats. I think I started the first 3 months of the year being like, wow, this is my best reading month yet. And then I spent every month after that being like, wow, this is my worst reading month yet. And this month, it felt pretty bad until nearer the end. This month I read 8 books, one of which was on the short side, but it's fine. And some of them are some more I say fun, light-hearted. I mean YA contemporary, which are a lot easier and I can read them a lot faster than some other books that took me a while. And once again, I've just not filled in my reading planner at all. So I think there's a lot of demotivation this month as well. I'm still working on edits for my own book. And it's too hot. It's too hot. I hope one day many people understand that, yeah, the UK's not that hot. But dear Lord, my house is built to keep it in. So anyway, here are the books I read this month. There are 8 total, and let's go into some stats. We have a pretty even split of moods this month, tense, emotional and dark being the main ones. Reflectives on there. I'm not really sure what I read was reflective. I read funny, I'm assuming that is a T. Kingfisher as always, but who's to say? There's one light-hearted read, and I'm desperately trying to work out. I'm assuming it again is one of the T. Kingfisher ones, but can't confirm. The genres were predominantly LGBT as always, which isn't a genre, and I pull this stuff every month as if it's going to change. But the top ones will probably never change. It's always going to be LGBT, fantasy, YA. But if you look a bit further down, we have speculative fiction, we have science fiction, we have literary, which is, very different for me. If you've seen any of my videos at all where I talk about my love for YA fantasy horror. Average rating was 3.31 stars, and when you look at this rating distribution, you can see why it feels like it wasn't a good month for me. Sure, I read an average amount of books, but there weren't great books. I have one new favourite. I had another I enjoyed, both of which were T. Kingfisher, and the rest were okay for me. Okay, and back to the individual books. The first book I finished reading this month was The Wonder Engine by T. Kingfisher, which is, the second book of this Clockwork Boys trilogy, which I will say every time I talk about these books, it's not a trilogy, not a trilogy. It's one book split into 2 books rather than true separate 2 books. And The Wonder Engine is the second half of Clockwork Boys, and it is the better half. I loved the first half, but it cut off in a really unsatisfying place where the main story, the main conflict's going to kick in. So it was unsatisfying, but The Wonder Engine is where all of the drama happens, and I loved it. And this book this half of a book, is going to make some of my mid-year lists and the video that I'm filming directly after this one. So I'll be talking about it in a touch of detail, but I have pretty much the same thoughts that I do for every T. Kingfisher book, which is I'm obsessed with her humour. I love that it brightens up the dark moments, or accompanies the dark moments. She has a very wicked, twisted imagination. I love her worlds. And in this book, I can't remember if I left commentary when I was updating it on Goodreads, or if I just read it in such a fever dream I didn't have time to think. But, the villain, for the lack of a better term for this book, I don't have the words. The kind of bony organ thing. If you've read this book, you know what I'm alluding to. But I'm going to read it again. And I read The Clockwork Boys because I just happened to find it in a shop, and I thought, wow, I love it. And I didn't realise it was part of a duology. And The Wonder Engine, I guess, this book came out years ago, but I'm guessing they're getting re-released this year because there's 10 T. Kingfisher books coming out this year. So I'm waiting for my pre-order to arrive to have a nice matching set, but I read the Kindle edition. I was so desperate to read this book, I couldn't find it in a library anywhere, I couldn't find it in a shop anywhere, not even the old edition, so I did have to pay for an ebook, which, breaks my heart. Thankfully, it wasn't an expensive ebook, but I'm going to have a matching set soon to show off. The next book I read is The Lamb by Lucy Rose. This was a physical book, the one physical book I read this month, and I no longer have it because I didn't enjoy it. I passed it on to someone who would love it more. And this is a book that I saw all over TikTok, or my side of TikTok, and it was sold to me because it was about cannibalism, and the complicated mother-daughter relationship. So I just bought it. What I didn't know going into this book, that the narrator is a young girl, and that's it really. I don't know why I thought it was going to be an older daughter, but it's a young daughter. She has a very narrow... Well, she's isolated out in this kind of cabin in the woods with her mother, who lures in people to kill and eat them. And then she goes to school sometimes. And I'll say the ending left me... I wouldn't say deeply unsatisfied. It's just... I'm gonna say things that are mentioned like entirely in the book description, so it's not really spoilery. But first of all, didn't really understand why cannibalism. Which, I never thought I'd say, because they still eat regular food, but the mother acts like if she doesn't have a person in her freezer right now, she's gonna just die on the spot. So I don't understand really why cannibalism. It might have just been like, this is very literary. I don't think I was vibing with the voice enough to truly understand what I was being told. But I don't understand why cannibalism. And then in the description it says, Eden is a character who joins the story where the mother tries to lure in this stray girl called Eden, who's out in the woods kind of like investigating a different missing girl. And Eden just very quickly just gets adopted into his family. They don't eat Eden. She becomes the stepmother to this little girl. And Eden is like, again, she just resorts to cannibalism immediately. I don't understand why. You're out in the woods trying to investigate these missing girls. You find the family who have such vibes that they definitely ate the missing girls. And you just thought, yeah, why not? Cannibalism, found family. There were some elements I enjoyed. The first opening sentence kind of like twisted me to my core. I've never had such a visceral reaction to an opening sentence before. So it definitely made me feel a lot of things. And I love emotive writing. I love that a book can give me that emotional response. I just didn't like the book, which is fine. I passed it on to somebody who I hopefully will like the book. Next up was Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power, which I read because I was raging to read Kill Creatures by Rory Power, and this hold came in first. I read a Rory Power book ages ago. I keep wanting to call it Swordkill Girls. It's not Swordkill Girls. I read it immediately after Swordkill Girls. What's it called? Wilder Girls. And I liked it. I think if I read it again now, I'd probably like it more, but because I read it immediately after Swordkill Girls, which I really loved, it fell flat in comparison. So I thought, I'm going to read some more Rory Power's books, and these ones are a little bit different to the original ones. But out of the two I read back to back, Burn Our Bodies Down is a girl runs away to her mother to track down her family. She finds that her grandmother lives in this farmhouse in this town where everyone hates her. I liked it. It is the epitome of the miscommunication trope, and there's very little I can say about getting spoilers. I enjoyed the writing. I think I enjoyed the characters. I think I enjoyed the plot, but the twist for the climax is about pesticides. Ultimately, don't understand. Couldn't suspend my disbelief or have enough imagination to get it in a sense. Then Kill Creatures by Rory Power is the one that I was wanting to read, and this one again had an unexpected twist at the end, but I really liked it. I think I still only gave 3.5 stars because again I always end up wanting more. But for a YA contemporary kind of mystery, kind of thriller, really enjoyed it because when we started approaching the twist, all the foundation that had been laid out beforehand for it started coming back to me, and I was like, oh my god, I'm getting it. I can guess and I always find it really satisfying to guess a twist. I don't think it's bad for a reader to get it, because it just means that you have laid out the groundwork and the foundation for it to be believable. And so when I get it, I really love it. And that's what I felt so smart. And just in summary, I liked it. Born for This by Caitlin Devlin is becoming a surprise favourite entry, again, onto my end of year favourites list, because this is a adult kind of, it's Taylor Jenkins Reid-esque. It's about a girl, she's 18 and she's 20, a young adult called Harley, and she's trying to become an actor, and she has this famous aunt called Rachel Carmichael, who is back in the day, in the 90s, she was a global movie star, and she had a very messy divorce, and she just disappeared off the face of the planet. And someone is making a biopic about Rachel, and Harley's who better to play my aunt than me, who looks exactly like my aunt? And this story is told in two timelines. You have the present day Harley, where she's talking about, getting to know her aunt, because she reconnects with her aunt who she's never met, and gets her life story to make into this film. So it's Harley's present day in London timeline, where she's making this film, she's talking to Rachel, she's filming the film, and the aftermath. And it's a dual timeline between that and Rachel's diary entries from the 90s, where she's telling what's really going on. And I love this little juxtaposition between past Rachel and then present day Rachel, who is mentioned in Harley's timeline. And also there's a certain point where when they start making the movie, they film scenes and then the chapter before you read what really happened in that scene in Rachel's timeline, and you start noticing the little disparities between the stories that are being told. And again, that that was a fun read. Again, it's not a genre that I lean towards. This like always literary style, this adult contemporary. Again, this Taylor Jenkins read of it all. It's not something I gravitate towards, but I follow Caitlin on TikTok and I'm obsessed with her as a person, so I thought I'm going to read this because it was on Kindle Limited. I thought, okay, I'm going to read this. And I'm obsessed. I'm surprisingly obsessed with it. Next up is my second T. Kingfisher book of the month, which is Sword Heart. And this is set in the same universe as The Clockwork Boys, The Wonder Engine. I think like 5 or so years after. And I really loved it because first of all, I enjoyed returning to this world. So the characters in Sword Heart, you know, making illusions, they're talking about, this thing happened in the past. I'm like, yes, I know that thing happened in the past. I read about it before. So I love being in the know of a world. But again, if you haven't read the previous books, they're completely standalone, they're separate. There's just like fun little Easter eggs for readers to get. And this one, again, he's kind of a paladin. It's a woman. This is a romantasy. It still has some dark elements, as T. Kingfisher is known for, still have a lot of humour. But it is this woman who has inherited a lot from her uncle or great uncle, and the family like locks her in a bedroom to try and force her to marry her cousin, so they can then inherit this money. And then she finds a sword in the bedroom, and she pulls out the sword to kill herself. But this is all in the description, by the way. She pulls out the sword, and it turns out there is a man who is trapped in the sword. He's like bound his life to the sword, and then by default he has bound his life to the sword bearer. So it's just this very complex story of this woman, this sword, this human sword, who is absolutely obsessed with her, and then going on an adventure to try and bring back her fortune. And it's twisty, it's fun, it brings back the Knowles from the Clockwork Boys. We return to that universe for a bit. It's funny, I love it. It was still, I was going to say it's one of my least favourite T. Kingfisher books, but I still gave this 4 stars, by the way. I'm just not a romantasy girly, so genre-wise, it wasn't for me as, say, Nettle and Bone, or The Wonder Engine, or many other T. Kingfisher books were. But I still loved it. It was fun. Because I'm just not a romance girly, but it was still really, really enjoyable. And if you are a romance girly, you will like this more than I did, and I loved it a lot. Next up we have A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, which is meant to be the retelling or reimagining of Dracula's first wife. And I believe that this was originally self-published, then got picked up by a publisher, and now S.T. Gibson has other traditionally published books. And as a self-published author, absolute dream. And I read this because I had the Kindle Unlimited subscription to read Caitlin Devlin, or the Kindle Unlimited free trial, and this was also Kindle Unlimited, so I thought I'm going to read this for free while I'm here. And because it was so hyped, but I think this is the case where a book was so hyped up, it just fell flat for me. And I enjoyed elements of it. A lot of it felt kind of repetitive, not much happened. It was just Dracula's first wife, his second wife, and then a guy who might have been his husband, who were just sat in his house just resenting Dracula. And it was okay. There were bits I liked. It was a mostly easy, enjoyable read. But the fact that they were vampires didn't really play into it enough for me, other than the fact that they hunted and they kind of hid away from the house, so and they moved around every now and then to hide the fact that they weren't aging. But the fact that they were vampires wasn't prominent enough for me. And I love a vampire. And the final book I read this month was The Seep, and this got recommended to me via a TikTok. I think it was a Weird Girl book compilation. And how do I begin to describe The Seep? The Seep is about a world where kind of the aliens have invaded and the people have welcomed them with open arms. And the aliens, they're not really present, they're more of a presence. And their whole thing is making people happy. It's a pretty short book, but all this stuff is mentioned in the description, so it's not really spoiler territory. You have the main character whose name escapes me. Her wife has decided that the only way to pursue happiness is to get reborn, to become a baby again, to lose all her memories and start over in a better life. So she goes off and does that, while our main character is absolutely mourning the loss that her wife has just gone. And she's in a big depressive episode. And then the Seep is there wow, we need to make you happy. How dare you be happy? And it's a book about basically free will, consent, and sure, the aliens have good intentions, but they can't take away your choice to be sad. And I enjoyed a lot of this, because mostly, the moral discussions I really enjoyed about it. but the actual plot, the actions that the character do. Again, I wish this was like 400, 500 pages long. I wish this was infinite length. Because it's like, cool, the main character goes on a train, she goes to like Chicago or Detroit or some other city. She watches a show, and there's a whole plot, again it's mentioned in the description, about this boy who comes from a compound. I think a compound is just a place where they don't have the seep, the aliens, but I don't really know. I want to know more about the compound. I could read infinite of these books. I liked it, but I didn't love it. And it had like similar energy for me at first as the Annihilation book, which I did love. So again, I wanted to love this one more, but alas, I didn't. Okay, so those are the books I read this month. Let's take a little look as like an overview for the 6 months of stats, because I have a feeling it's going to look identical to like my monthly stats, because I'm not very diverse in my reading, genre-wise. So my moods for the past 6 months, as expected, are emotional, dark, mysterious, adventurous, and tense. What can I say? I love a sad, dark book. And funny is showing up in here because I read a lot of I've read 60 Kingfisher books so far this year. I have plans to read. I would like to read all of the Paladin's Grace or Paladin's Faith series, and then I have a Sorceress Comes to Call behind me, and then she's got Handbook and Silver coming out, so I might read another 60 Kingfisher books this year. So Funny is always going to rank high. Hopeful, Light-Hearted and Aspiring are there, but I, again, at this moment in time, can't remember what books they represent. Top genres, as always, young adult fantasy. Romance is there because a lot of books I have romantic subplots, but I've not read like a specific romance. Sword Heart will be the closest that's come to specific romance. LGBT, of course, horror, of course, contemporary. I read a lot of short stories this year because I wanted to read The Six Deaths of the Saint by Alex E. Harrow, and then so I decided just to read every single short story in that collection rather than just the one I wanted. Then, yeah, thriller, dystopian. My most read authors in a surprise to no one is T. Kingfisher with 6 books, Maggie Stiefvater with 4 because I reread the Raven Boys via audiobook like every other year, and on alternating years I read the Scorpio Racers. Margaret Owen is here because I fell in love with the Little Thieves trilogy earlier in the year. Alex E. Harrow because I read 2 short stories, but I need to read more of her full-length novels because I'm obsessed with her. Rory Power is just because I read 2 Rory Power books this month. Rebecca Ross is because I reread Divine Rivals in preparation for whatever the second book in that series is called. But I want to read more of her books. Average rating is 3.4 stars. I was going to say it's predominantly books I liked, so it's largely 3.5 stars, 4.0 stars. But then there's a lot of 2.5, because there's a lot of books that I read and I think, that was okay. It was just okay. But yeah, on Storygraph, I only use whole star or half star ratings. I don't want to start dabbling in quarter stars, that's just a bit too much for me. And where's my actual stats of how many books I've read? So my goal for the year is currently 100 books. I usually start at 52 books because that's being 1 book per week works well with my lifestyle. When I get close to hitting that, I up to 75. And then because I had such a strong start to the year, I upped it to 100. So yeah, currently at 65 books. I'm still ahead by 15. So I'm on track to hit my goals. And I start like my pages and hours goals usually at like 15,000 pages, 150 hours. And when I get close to hitting it, I up it to 20,200 hours. And again, yeah, I'm at almost 16,000 pages, might up that further, and 110 hours. So that's still, if I read an audiobook a month, I'm going to be on track to hit my goals. The average time it takes me to finish a book is apparently 4 days, because I'll read a book in 1 or 2 days, or I'll read the first chapter in 1 day and I'll read the rest a month later. So it's not a great average. I predominantly read medium-paced books that are 300 to 499 pages, and mostly digital. And I think I'm about halfway through. At the start of the year, I set a physical TBR for myself to read some books off here. It was originally just like 12 books, so 1 book per month. I think I'm about halfway through that, but then I keep picking up new additions to my TBR because I love T. Kingfisher. So that is what I've read this month, and that is my stats for the year so far. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.